Obviously clearly into UFC and stuff like that. And he says, Mr. Wolfe, have you ever been in a real fight? I said, yeah, I've had people try to kill me. He said, no, a real fight. I said, what do you mean by a real fight?
That's a real.
No, but mindset. So, oh no, like the UFC. I said, oh, no, but I've been in the ultimate fight.
The question that's coming to mind is just, so I guess, what would you say if you could name the most important aspect of pragmatic combat or pragmatic combatives? What would you say it would be in, I guess, one word? Like, how would you describe it? Like the one major aspect, I guess, that would set another art away from, being a combative art, like a sport between a combative art.
Well, that's again, that's my definition is reality. I mean, a lot of the stuff I see coming out, whether it be sports or whatever, like everyone thinks. For example, I had a young kid, soldier, obviously clearly into UFC and stuff like that. And he says, Mr. Wolfe, have you ever been in a real fight? I said, yeah, I've had people try to kill me. He said, no, a real fight. I said, what do you mean by a real fight?
That's a real.
No, but mindset. So, oh no, like the UFC. I said, oh, no, but I've been in the ultimate fight. But see, so the question you're asking can't be truly answered when the framework, the mental framework of what people see and think is not there. Like I'll get young soldiers from your army who instructors and modern and good lads, dedicated, combat veterans, et cetera, and we'll do stuff, and they'll go, wow. And all I simply do is, okay, here's the stand up, here's the ground, and here's the ambushes and all the stuff that goes with it, and I show them how to marry it. Okay, because right now you have a pragmatic system, so this is what you have to do. And they have a different system for knife fight, different system for handgun shooting, different system for rifle. It's all one system, because the more complicated you make it, the less effective it's going to be under pressure. And it's harder to teach. You need a system that can be learned within a relatively short period of time that's effective. And it's the same thing true for your black belt training, all the way up from white belt to black belt. It has to be simple and effective. Like I love the Koreans because I spent a lot of time, but when I did Hapkido, it was like 5 belts. I went to a club Wagon, it was 21 belts. They had stripes on stripes and this and that. I was confused.
Wow.
And they were doing back handstands and all this shit. So what that is, because Hapkido used to be a really hard martial art. And there was elements that were stupid, but a lot of it was still good shit. So again, it comes down to who the instructor is and stuff. But again, how do you frame what you're asking? Is You'd have to take a cross section of people that and ask them that question. I'm too defined at what I do now. I mean, I can go on the floor and you saw me do stuff, you think I was doing Aikido. Or you think I'm doing Brazilian. You think I'm doing, and this is all stuff that, I was doing 40 years ago, 50 years ago. So what's changed? How you young people in martial arts perceive it. And a lot of that has to do with marketing. It has nothing to do with reality of combat or training on the dojo or the dojang. It has to do with marketing. It has to do with who's in the late 80s, 90s, I coined a phrase called reality-based self-defense that Black Belt picked up. And the reason they asked me the question someone used is, what's the difference? Reality. What's your reality base? Where are you drawing your training from that would make it reality-based training? And of course, the problem I had is their definition of reality was far, far different than mine. So, I mean, if you grew up on the streets, fighting a lot, you have a different appreciation of that. Around more violence, you have a different appreciation of that. So, but a lot of people don't. A lot of guys get into martial arts, they come out of that, kumbaya type of background, and and there's nothing wrong with the tradition. I mean, in fact, I'd love to be a samurai, but I'm a white Irish Protestant. That's probably not going to happen. So stuff like that. So, but we train. The training is, like if it's real training, and if I may take it, I say my definition of real training. If your training is real, and we would interlock. You follow?
Right.
And would it be, say, okay, Krav Maga, Modern Defendo, whatever else is out there, I don't know. Because there's probably more stuff.
I mean, KFM. There's a lot of arts.
I mean, everybody's got whatever. But if
Yeah.
it is real, then it should interlock. There should be a similarity. Like in Europe, we have a big following, and most of those guys came from Krav. And the reason they came from Krav is I filled in the missing pieces. The mind-body connection. They didn't Krav didn't have ground fighting. They didn't have this. The stuff that we did was simpler, made more sense to them. And these guys are experienced fighters. They've backgrounds usually Muay Thai, kickboxing, Krav. So they, and they found in Krav a similarity to the kickboxing.
Mm-hmm.
And then I came along and went, well, do this, do that. And then we talked about mind-body connection and the tactics involved and stuff. So that kind of, okay, now we're filling in the missing parts. So, so again, whatever that reality is, I mean, if you look at, you talked about Fairburn and O'Neill and guys like that. I mean, their system, what your modern armored combatives program, if you look at it from the modifications they've been ordered to make, and it's well over 200 of them, would bring it back to what O'Neill was teaching the first Special Service Force and your first elements of Green Beret back in the 50s. The problem being is a lot of people get involved in this type of training, and they have an Aikido background, they have this background, that, and they come in and they want to infuse their style, their martial art into it, to the expense of the reality of combat training. And like when I took over training at the academy, the guy I took over from had no martial arts training whatsoever. He just did a whole bunch of courses, and it was just a mishmash of nonsense. So we did a 2-year research program on police use of force, looked at every assault on a police officer in Canada for 2 years, everything. And we formulated a training. You come up from EOs, evaluation objectives, then you create your performance objectives, you can put into your course training program. You have to come up with courses and, blah, 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 blah. And then it all has to be court defensible because Pop's going to go before court if he messes up, all this stuff. And then away you go. That's a lot of work.
Right.
So who wants to do that? But the little guys, I have a white belt course, I have a yellow belt course, I have this course. A lot of stuff in those, it only has one element, a little bit of physical training. There's no mental training. There's no tactical training. It's not being, stuff like that. So why bother when guys say, why do I go to so much trouble? Because, that's how I was raised. That's how I was raised in the military and soldiering.
Right.
And as Regimental Sergeant Major, you have a responsibility to ensure the soldiers under you are the best trained on the planet. And same as policing. When I took over the role as a trainer in policing, I had to ensure not only were they the best trained that I could possibly make them, but I had to make sure that they should have been on the job. Because some of them, you get a guy, the guy will tap out on a deal, and you give him a little extra hit after the tap out. Let's go have a chat, son, because you probably shouldn't be there. You're the guy's going to take the flashlight and mock the guy, or seeing what's happening in the United States right now and stuff. The police. So as a trainer, being a martial arts instructor, you're failing your students when you don't address their lack of discipline and their emotional content, and that's part of your job. And that's what the old boys used to do. All the grand masters that we all revere, they did something like that. Maybe not so many words, but you've been hit upside the head by a shinai.
Accidentally, yes.
Yeah. Well, when I started, if you screwed up, they'd whack you with that mother thing until the point of drawing blood. So you went, oh God, I must have done something stupid.
Oh.
Okay, so discipline. But you weren't allowed to act like that. You understand? So you're not supposed to have ego. But us martial arts guys got more ego than anybody I know. Maybe a few actors got us beat out, but our egos are pretty big.
Yeah, it can be very true.
So I mean, but it's still fun training, isn't it?
Oh, most definitely. Just nowadays most people who train martial arts, they train it for the athletic aspect, just the conditioning that comes from it, and the building of a stronger, more functional body. There's definitely a lot of reasons that a lot of people still practice, even if it's in a sport aspect. But I guess in thinking about just what you've said so far, I guess the question, this could be like the last question before I turn it over to you for any questions that you might have for me. What would you say, what would need to be done to get people to really want to learn and be interested in realistic combative training?
It's a hard question. I don't know, maybe you have to take a pill. I don't know. I mean, yeah, what's the Matrix thing? They plug you into the wall or something like that.
The Matrix.
I, you know, we're coming into an era where my kids made me watch a movie called Wall-E. You ever seen Wall-E?
Yeah.
Okay, that's where we're going.
Oh,
So you try to talk to people. Yeah, come down to my dojo. We're going to do this really hard sweat workout, and they go, "Why?" Like people come train with me, and 10 minutes they're on the floor crying. "Oh, this is too hard, Mr. Wolfe. You can't keep up with Grandpa. What are you talking about? It's too freaking hard. It's stupid." So first off the bat is, like you talked about it being fitness. So we create a thing called Defendo PT, where people come in and we put them through Defendo PT first, where it brings them up physically. And then in our class, you burn about 1,200 or so calories, functional fitness and all this good stuff. Once you've addressed that, then maybe I can put them into the combative side of training where they're going to get some bumps and bruises and stuff like that. Or a lot of them just stay in the PT program. They love it but they're not interested in the fighting aspect.
Right. They're interested in fitness. So,
yeah. And, martial arts used to be fitness. And that's what it should be. Like in the battalions in the Canadian Army, if you're stationed in the prairies, you're not going out doing road runs at minus 35 degrees. So how do you maintain battalion fitness? So you take them into the hangar and you have what we call a PT class, a Defendo PT class. And, you work in bags and doing all stuff, what I call fitness with purpose training. And lo and behold, they actually may still maintain their fitness. When I took over training at the police academy, for example, when I went to the academy, you did road runs. We would 5 miles, 12-mile road runs and weight training and all this. It had nothing. It didn't make you. It had no fitness with purpose mentality. So I said, I'm shit canning all that. And they went, oh, how are they going to pass their PT test? How are they going to do this? Because how they judged the training to be successful is each time they did their PT test, they got a higher score, higher score, higher score. I said, well, is the score really that important? Or is the fact that they know how to arrest and control and defend themselves and defend the public more important? Of course. So I said, okay, we're going to do this. And so we had every day we had a PT class, Defendo PT, worked them out. Then we had the self-defense training as a separate part of it. Well, lo and behold, when they get their first PT test, they actually scored higher. Then the next one was higher and higher. And was, as Doug Fernald's my associate, who was a genius at that stuff, they discovered really quickly that the fitness level that they were getting by doing functional fitness was higher than doing the weight training and the other stuff, because their muscles had to functionally work under that stress load, if you will. So makes perfect sense. Now, martial arts guys knew that 1,000 years ago. So where do we go wrong? And where do we lose that curve, if you will? So I've always been doing it. I've been doing it for over 60 years now.
Right.
And I'm an old man. I think I'm still in pretty good shape for an old guy. I'm not in the wheelchair yet, but
hopefully you never get to the wheelchair.
Well, let's hope. I got 4 young kids, so I got to be around till at least 95 to see them all graduate school. So, so stuff
I
like
would
that.
say though, to answer that question, or at least attempt to answer that question, I think that personally, the thing that really kind of started pulling it back was the commercialization of martial arts. Like many people have begun teaching martial arts as a way to make a living. So it's like, in order to be able to make that living, you got to keep people interested in learning what you're teaching so that they'll come back to keep your business going. Now, obviously the business shouldn't be more important than the art, but in cases where, say the majority of your people that are coming are students, or you have like a big, the children's following, we'll say, you want to be able to have the parents be okay with having your child come in there if they know that, certain safety precautions are going to be taken there. It's something that allows them to be comfortable in letting their child learn self-defense. And I guess that's where like a lot of it is lost. It's the thought of, which do I need to make a living, but I also want to teach this art, but I need to make a living. So it's like, it's a constant battle of, I need to be able to pay my bills versus I want to keep this art that I spent all these years learning going. So it's like, I feel that's probably the best answer that I can give, at least at this time, for probably why. Maybe a stereotypical answer or whatever, but
it's true. It's truthful. It's like, you got to keep the bills going. Look at COVID. How many schools died after COVID because you couldn't pay the bills?
Yeah.
So that, that's a given. But I mean, there's You talk about kids programs. So there's nothing wrong with teaching kids. I mean, I think
Right.
it's important.
Of course.
My oldest boy is 10 years old, down to 5. So I train them. They don't like it because we're not playing games and stuff like that. When they go to judo, they get to play more games and stuff, which really drives me nuts because they're not really learning the basic stuff. So, but that's because I'm old, I guess. But stuff like that. But I mean, what I have a problem with is anti-bullying stuff that's supposed to be taught in schools or child abduction stuff. There's a lot of, the guys make up programs. Mom and dad, you buy into this, and my kid, I'm going to teach your kid this, and it's just a load of shite. My introduction to police work was the largest child mass murder we've had in Canada, a guy named Clifford Olson. So, pedophile, I mean, I had a whole career of dealing with this stuff. So, when I start hearing this stuff, I go, no. What you're doing is just a sales job. There's a lot of schools around here where we live that are daycares. And, granted, they make a lot of money off daycare. Are the kids learning martial arts? Not really. Not what we would consider, but there has to be a starting point. And I think it takes a very talented instructor, sensei, whoever you want to call it, that can transition from daycare, keeping the doors open to the next thing. And he has to be a talented way of bringing kids involved again. And, I know this from my own kids today. The kids today aren't active learners anymore, thanks to computers, thanks to cell phones. They're starting to shut down. Like I said, Wally World's coming, stuff like that. So as instructors, we have to find ways of getting the skill sets across that are going to build a pyramid of training rather than just, for example, my kids' judo class, and they got a very good judo instructor, he's a Japanese gentleman. But they had some kids from Romania come in who were, one was about 12, who was like an orange belt, and his brother was a yellow belt, who was much younger. And the orange belt was taking the Canadian black belts and just making mincemeat out of them. And I said, I looked at the instructor and I went, and the difference is he came out of an environment where it was very, and training, there was no games, it was in that. And what they had, the 2 remaining kids had a time to was adjusting to the playtime. Okay, because they weren't used to it. They were used to training, and to them, the judo was the fun, not the playing British Bulldog and all this other stuff that people created. So again, it takes a lot of forethought on, and teaching kids. I mean, I had hair before I started teaching kids, so stuff like that. So yeah, I mean, I take my hat off to the guys, but like you say, you got to keep the school open. Even we have to keep the school open, but we do it through training. We don't attract, we attract a certain, I guess, genre, if you will, and stuff like that. We get the odd nut bar, which doesn't last very long because they don't like the physical side of things and stuff like that. The guys who usually come to train are guys who like to train, whether it be, and most of the guys who train me have no martial arts background. They come from, because they hear about self-defense, and, they come and try it and they like it because we make the classes interesting and applicable to what's going on today. And, we don't cut them any slack. Which is also hard because discipline seems to be a thing most people don't want anymore. And without discipline and training, it's just a waste of your time and money.
And it's dangerous too, because without the discipline, not only can you end up hurting somebody in a class that you're teaching or somebody else is teaching, but it also they could take what they learn and just run off and do whatever with it. To be honest.
That's the given, but I mean, the biggest problem is you have a curriculum, and in order to get them through the curriculum, you have to, your own self is stated discipline over the course of the curriculum instead of veering off here, veering off there. And one of the problems I have with instructors, they'll look at something, oh, I want to try that. And then they don't have time to train. So they blend into class so they can work it. And it has nothing to do with what we do. And it's a waste of training time, but it looks good, and stuff like that, touchy feely and whatever the hell. So again, it's the same, but I mean, when you have a curriculum, it takes a certain discipline on the part of the student to learn it, and on you as an instructor to get that across. And then I tell instructors you have to become an entertainer instructor. You have to be entertaining when you teach in order to keep the interest, because that's how people are today. In your 10-minute block, if you don't make it fun, they're not coming back. Right. And it can be physically hard But at the same time, we joke around, and like I'll ask guys, what's the average weight of a C4 assault rifle? They don't know, so they have to do 25 push-ups. So next time they come in, I ask the question, they know what the weight of the rifle is, so you don't have to do push-ups. Then I figure out something else equally stupid for them to do, and things like this, so you find creation, but it doesn't take away from the initial key elements of what you want to get across and stuff like that. So, but yeah, it's difficult. It's keeping the doors open, keeping the lights on. A lot of people don't realize how expensive it is until they actually, like it would seem like a time in the 70s, everybody got a black belt and ran out and opened up a dojo or a dojo. And they didn't last long because all of a sudden you realize, well, one, I got that personality to run a school. I have to know how to market. I have to know all this business stuff, and away you go, and away you go. So it gets difficult. And, for me at my age, I mean, I've got guys who tell me I learned from them. And I go, well, you're my student. No, Bill learned from me. So, you can only keep, in this industry, you can only keep honest people honest. And that's true of whatever style karate or whatever style judo people do, keeping it honest, giving, like I always said, our system comes from Fairburn, O'Neill, and the guys who trained me. And you pay accolades back to them. And when people say, well, you invented it. Well, that's nice, but no, I didn't. I just polished the courses from research and what I know to be effective to fit into the modern training environment that we live in today. So, that's what you do, but a lot of people don't. Their egos get in the way, and they run off and create their own nonsense, which, usually falls apart after a while anyway. But it's still nonsense, and they damage what the rest of us are doing in the long run.